Hey, Sean, it's been a year, so let's talk about the Inovativ Voyager NXT 36. Now, with any 1 year later review, it's a product that I've used for at least 12 months on at least 12 different production shoots. And while I've had this cart for 12 months, I've used it on way more than 12. I've used this on almost every shoot, no matter how big or small, since getting it. I absolutely love this thing. So there are 4 main pros and really 4 cons or drawbacks that I have discovered after using this for a year. If you're unfamiliar, the Inovativ carts are carts that are robust and well built and have high workload capacities, but they fold up, they collapse into themselves, so they're remarkably portable, and they're really sturdy in spite of being portable compared to other things like the Magna carts that are out there and some other setups that I've seen people use. So number one, this thing is amazing. It's just well built. Its payload is listed at 600 pounds. I've put every light I own and stand and tripod and cameras and gimbals. We have loaded this thing up with C-stands and ballast and sandbags and all this stuff, and it has never struggled a little bit. The wheels on it are really, really well built. It is just robust, and I have only been impressed with it since getting it. It has handled everything that I've thrown at it or thrown on it, and I could not be happier with the performance of this cart. I've had other times where I've used other carts, and I used to have a rock and roller, and it was so narrow that it would be really unstable, and if you piled it high as you needed to because it wasn't that wide, it would get really off balance. This thing is really, really stable. It handles curves and bumps, and if you don't go down something perfectly evenly, I've never had it wobble or almost fall over or anything. I've been really, really happy with the build of this cart and how it's executed and how it actually works in the field. So more specifically, the second pro is the portability. The fact that this folds up into itself means that I can fit it in not only my truck, in the bed of my pickup truck, but anyone's car can usually fit this if you fold some seats down. They make bigger models than mine. I have the smallest one of these carts that they make, but they make bigger models that I've seen people fit in their Honda Civics and things like that. So they do fold up really, really conveniently. And I also know people that fly with them. They build the cart, they go through the airport, they check all the stuff on the cart, then they fold the cart up and check the cart. They fly to where they're going, then they get the cart out, build it, get all their other bags, put them on the cart, and they're on their way. If you've ever flown with gear, you know what a nightmare it can be and how you need 8 extra hands to help you, and you move stuff to one spot, somebody goes, gets a rental car while somebody watches the gear, and then you take trips. It can be a headache. This cart makes you more portable. That goes a long way, and that's a huge number 2. Compared to other carts even that you can't necessarily check because they don't fold up into a nice container that won't get bent and broken as it goes through these things. This thing is built like a tank when it's out and when it's inside its own little turtle shell. It's really, really sturdy and durable. Number 3 is the biggest one, and that is this cart has expanded my capabilities as a video producer. Not only am I able to carry more into a gig by myself, even if I have a small crew, I'm able to load this cart up with things and still bring roller cases with stands and lights and things like that, where before I was forced to carry everything or take multiple trips. Obviously, having a cart that has a big capacity makes it easier to move around. But beyond that, having an actual workstation someplace is really, really nice, that you're not bending on the floor if there's dust, or I'm in bakeries, I've been in places where they make horse food. I've been in a lot of places with a lot of dust or powder. So in a lot of these places, you don't want to set your stuff on the floor, especially your camera gear, where you don't want dust and stuff getting on it more than it's already going to. So having this raised surface, the top of both shelves is carpeted, so it's really forgiving. You can set a lens on it and not worry about it scraping or falling off because they've got ledges around the edge. I love using this as a workstation, and I got the X top, which has one of the walls cut off, so that way there isn't a lip around the whole thing. So if I'm typing, if I'm doing something, I don't have a ridge that I have to put my wrists over. I can sit there with a laptop, with a computer, with a keyboard, with an iPad, whatever, and type comfortably. But it's also just a great place to build a gimbal, to balance things where I'm not having to use somebody's desk or clear off a space or do it on the ground. I always have this safe space that I bring. And that's where the 4th pro comes in now more than ever. During the pandemic, when we're trying to minimize our contact with things, if you're going into a public place, into an office, we're trying to do our best to, minimize contact with these high traffic areas and stuff. And if you have to go in and use somebody's table, or you're in a restaurant and you need to set stuff up somewhere, having a surface that is just yours goes a long way. Knowing that it hasn't been eaten on by other people, it hasn't been coughed on or whatever, someone hasn't blown their nose and leaned on it or anything. It's your little space. And I find that with my cart, most people get that's my area. Where if I'm setting up on a conference room table or something, people are setting their stuff nearby. They're setting their drinks next to my gear. With this cart, people are pretty respectful of that's his space and I'm not going to mess with it. And that goes a long way to me, not only for the actual physical safety of my gear, but for the germ safety of my gear in the world right now. It's a nice, safe place that I get to bring everywhere with me. Now, on the cons, I've been using this thing for a year and I've run into 4 things that have bothered me about this. Number 1 bothered me right up front, and that's the cost. These carts are at least $2,000. I got mine on sale through a Travis Weir's group buy when they first came out. I ended up getting it for around $1,800. They're expensive, and they're handmade in California. Like it's a good company. They're fantastic products, but compared to anything else, they are much more expensive. And it's because of the functionality and the thought that they've put into creating these. But it's still very, very expensive, and there's other options that are a lot cheaper out there, and you may break them or they may not hold up quite as long. But they're much, much cheaper. Like a rock and roller you can get for like $300, and this is a lot more than that. So the cost is a con, but in my experience, it has been worth it. I do wish it had been cheaper, but it's expensive. Number 2 is the weight. This thing, while yes, it can carry 600 pounds and it needs to be heavy to do that, it is very heavy. Mine weighs almost 100 pounds, and I got the NXT version. And the EVO version, the main difference is that the wheels are built a little differently and they're lighter, and it shaves off like 30 pounds. And I thought in my head at the time, like, it's like $1,000 more for these wheels. And I was like, 30 extra pounds for $1,000, I'll take the weight. But the difference between carrying something that's 60 pounds and carrying something that's 100 pounds, or 90 pounds, whatever, is substantial, and it means that I can't necessarily have other people lift it out of my truck, depending on who I'm working with, or I need multiple people to lift it up. And so while it is portable, it is pretty cumbersome. And that gets into the third con. While it's portable, it still has a lot of pieces, and I've struggled a lot of times to fit all of the pieces back inside it. The way it folds up, all 4 wheels go in these bags, and it fits inside and closes. And there's a lot of times where I can get it. There's a lot of times where I feel like I'm bending it to get it to close and I feel like I'm, sitting on the suitcase, packing for a big trip, trying to get this thing to close and lock up. And then there's times where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to deal with it right now. I won't put the wheels in it. I'll just put it in and I'll set the wheels on top of it in my truck and be done with it for now. So while it is portable and it breaks down and that's very convenient, it is still cumbersome and it takes a couple minutes. It takes about 2 minutes to build, but it takes me probably about 5 minutes to break down. And sometimes when I'm in the rain next to my truck trying to do this, I've got all my gear safely in, but I need to put this, I can't set this on top of my gear because it weighs a lot. So I have to unload my gear, break the cart down, put the cart in, and then put my gear in on top of the cart. And so, yes, it's portable. If I had a grip truck, like a box truck, this would be a totally different conversation. But for me, at my level, I've got a Nissan Frontier pickup truck, and it's pretty convenient, but there are times when I wish that I had something that folded up faster or was lighter, so that I wouldn't have to stand in the rain or the cold for so long. And lastly, this is true of any cart, but because of how heavy this one is, when you're rolling around someplace, the Achilles heel, almost literally, for this cart is a step. If you're going through a building or something and there's a single step or someplace that doesn't have a ramp, you're just sort of out of luck. And I've had to go outside one door, go around the building outside and come in because it's 6 stairs up and they don't have a lift. And it has made it very clear to me how frustrating it must be to be in a wheelchair or to have any mobility issue, because if there isn't ADA compliance, this cart is going to struggle to get around. You end up if you had roller cases and backpacks and stuff, you could probably walk up those stairs pretty quickly. But with everything built on the cart, even if you unload the cart and walk the stuff up the stairs, then lifting this cart up when it's built is just sort of awkward and definitely very difficult to do by yourself. So I have noticed that of when I'm in buildings, and I do a lot of stuff in schools that are being renovated, and a lot of these schools are being renovated because they don't have ADA compliance. And so I find that I leave my cart in one area by a stair where I can't, make it up and go do my stuff and then come back to it. So that's one thing, again, not unique to this cart, but as I think to myself, like, oh, I'll be able to go anywhere and do anything, compared to not having a cart, this cart or any other cart, I've run into some obstacles that I've been unable to clear with this cart. All in all, a year later, I absolutely love this thing. I would recommend it to anyone who's got the money to do it. I think I made a video at the beginning of the year of if I had to start my kit from scratch. I think before certain lenses that I would buy, or even microphones, I would want this cart because of how easy it makes production once you get there, and how easy it makes it to get there in most situations. So that's my thoughts 1 year later. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.